This is a story about our 2012 Subaru Impreza Sport, and why it's the best car I've ever driven. We've had our share of vehicles over the years, all meticulously documented and detailed in a large photo book my dad curates. In order to understand why the Impreza is so special, we must first take a look into the past. My dad's first car was a 1982 Toyota Corolla. He picked it up for $2,000 with 89,000 kilometers on it. He was my age when he bought it, and it was sold 2 years later for quite possibly the coolest car he's ever owned. Meet the 1984 Trans Am. With a golden eagle emblazoned on the hood and a 5-liter V8 inside, this quickly became my dad's favorite car, and I can see why. If my memory serves me correctly, my mom passed her driving test in this thing. If only YouTube was around back then. Next was a Mercury Cougar, which he traded the Trans in for. Why he made that decision is beyond me. Both the Cougar and the subsequent Cavalier, Swift, and Aerostar were the last cars he purchased before I was born. These vehicles weren't anything special, but they cemented my dad's obsession for swapping out cars every couple years. Little did he know, the Trans Am wouldn't be the last cool car in his collection. Something big was on its way, set to arrive in about 22 years. We're now in 1995. And my dad had just purchased a Dodge Shadow, which he kept until I was 11. I remember the bench seats in the back had a sliding back and forth every time he took a turn. The most interesting car came after that, a Ford Taurus GL. He picked it up the year before my little brother was born, and it was the only car to feature fold-out seats in the trunk. I remember waving to all the other drivers and thinking cars with turn signals engaged were winking at me, so I winked back. Next came the minivan stage of our fleet. This Pontiac Montana came at a time when my brother and I were 3 and 9 respectively. We kept it up till 2008, and I have zero memory of it. That's probably for the best. Jumping all the way to 2005 came the first brand new car my dad ever purchased. This was a baby blue Hyundai Accent, and the car I drove until it was totaled in 2015. I was stopped at an intersection late at night on the way to the gym, and a distracted driver plowed through both myself and the car behind me, sending us flying into the intersection. It was a really long night, and the police officer said if I had been the middle car in that crash, I would have been pancaked. If you've ever been in a car with me, that's the reason I'll do my best to be the first car lined up at every intersection. It wasn't all bad news though. We still had my dad's 2000 BMW 528i, the classiest car we've ever owned. He picked it up in 2008 as a gift to himself for his 20th anniversary at Bell Canada, and he babied the hell out of that thing. It had leather everything, memory seats, a 200 horsepower V6, and a heated steering wheel. He loved that feature. I may have snuck it out of the house a couple times just to make sure the engine was up to par. Having one car in a 4-person family was a struggle, so next came a Mercedes C-Class. It was a 2009 model, and it was the only car we've ever owned to feature a sport mode. It was the fastest car in our fleet and an absolute pleasure to drive. It was also incredibly expensive out of warranty and would be replaced a couple years down the line. Remember when I mentioned the cool car that would be replacing my dad's Trans Am? Well, in the summer of 2012, it arrived. This is his 1973 Mgb Roadster, previously owned by the record producer for Rush. He treats his car better than he treats his kids, and it's the perfect car for a summer's drive. This thing deserves a video of its own. In the next few years, we sold the BMW for a Crosstrek and the Mercedes for an Impreza. On the surface, it looks like a big step down, right? But there's a lot more to a vehicle than horsepower and some leather seats. The Impreza was the first car that I drove, which came equipped with a sense of community. Other Subaru drivers wave to you as you pass them on the road. You get invited to car meets and events, and you have access to every vehicle modification under the sun. This fiercely loyal customer base is extremely welcoming, regardless of your model, transmission type, or list of modifications. And if you're as lucky as I was, you might meet some lifelong friends out of it. I mentioned that my dad switches cars every couple years, and unfortunately, my time with the Subaru has just run out. He found a new job that requires frequent driving to different offices around town. The Impreza's getting old, and he's been looking to electrify the fleet for a while now, with objectively faster, better, and nicer cars. I compulsively offered to buy the Impreza from him outright just to keep it in the family, but I'm looking for a job far away from here, and an offer could come in tomorrow. It's just not realistic. I'll be honest, it's gonna suck not seeing this car on the driveway every morning. Every time I get in it, I think of the road trips, the convoys, the car meets, the late nights, the drive-in, even that time my mom spilled a bowl of soup in the trunk. But just because the car is gone doesn't mean those memories will fade. My friends aren't going anywhere, the road trips will still continue, and the videos documenting them will keep being made. Maybe this isn't the end of my car story. Maybe it's just the start of another chapter.